Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Hello, my lovely friends, and welcome to episode 131, where we are going to talk about anger again in a different way than we have before, because it's a real thing in so many relationships, and because it can also be the primary force that leads to disconnection and disintegration of marriages and relationships, and I don't want that for you at all. So today we're going to talk about how we can redirect our anger into a powerful force of positive change, like we want it to be in our relationship, instead of a force that unravels our relationship. Before we dive in, I just want to give you the heads up that enrollment for Treasured, specifically early enrollment, is about to open. And if you're on the wait list, you not only get first dibs, but you also get exclusive access to the early enrollment discount. So I'm going to just put the direct link for that in the show notes. If you haven't yet checked out Treasured, my marriage coaching program for sensitive women, you got to do so. And if it sounds like something you're interested in doing, definitely get on the wait list now. Okay, let's dive into today's topic. And in this episode, I'm really not going to be telling you what to do so much as inviting you into a powerful, potentially new way of seeing things that will really lead to more of the kind of marriage that you want. Particularly if you have some low grade or higher grade anger about how things are going with your partner or at how your partner is at times. So if you're like many of the women I've worked with over the years, you might sometimes feel like yelling at your partner, "What's wrong with you? Why are you so insensitive?" Or "Why are you so oblivious?" Or "Why are you so," fill in the blank. Fill in whatever blank that is for you. Now, whether you've ever said that kind of thing or yelled something like that, or just yelled at your partner at all, or you just keep the anger that comes up for you locked up, either way, you've probably been mad or deeply frustrated or seriously irked by or irritated with your spouse. If you've been with them longer than, a year or 3, it's really common in marriages to have some level of anger coming up here and there. And maybe for you, that anger is just kind of sitting there below the surface, simmering. And maybe it also tends to come out, if not in a big blow up eventually, in smaller ways here and there with your partner, right? Like a snappy comment that you make about his clothes being on the floor again, or a sarcastic word about his timeliness when he's late again. Many of my clients feel and act this way towards their partner to some degree. And some get really stuck here, as I did in my first marriage. So if you've been there or if you are there, you know how it kind of sucks the love and ease and lightness right out of the room. However you express it or you repress it, anger tends to feel like a wall between you and your honey. And when you're feeling anger, your honey definitely doesn't feel like a honey. Am I right? But here's the thing. When you are longing for deep love and connection and a sense of being on the same loving team in this wild life together, like you are because you're listening to this podcast, anger at your partner isn't the ticket to get you there. And I totally get it. It's so normal to feel anger when we don't feel fully met in our relationship, when our partner isn't loving us in the ways we most want, when he's withdrawn or especially defensive or whatever it is. it's really a common reaction to point your finger, metaphorically or literally, at your partner when you see the ways he isn't being how you wish he was, right? Like to give him the cold shoulder, to snap at him. But the more that I work with people and the more I learn about the human brain and the nervous system and trauma, the more I know that the reason your person isn't being who you want is perhaps highly insensitive or not so kind or responsible or awesome with you at times. The reason for that is because of their own pain, their own trauma, their own stuff. And when I say trauma, I don't necessarily mean some terrible, terrible, terrible event had to have happened to your partner. Okay, just living in this modern society is enough to have trauma. And their pain or their trauma or their stuff, as I call it, wasn't and isn't truly their fault. They never chose it. It was passed on to them. So I want to make sure you understand that the anger that you feel is not wrong. It is valid. And yet, I'd like to lovingly suggest that your anger is misdirected. And by that I mean two things. The first thing is that your anger isn't helping you have the loving, tender, light, supportive marriage that you want. So directing it at your partner is a misuse or a misdirection of it. And secondly, I want to suggest that really your anger is at the fact that life is painful and the fact that pain and trauma shaped your person, that they had the experiences that they did that made them how they are today, that their human mind and nervous system dealt with whatever they've gone through in the way your partners did. Remember the recent episode about being triggered that talks about how emotions and behaviors come from our beliefs, ones that we didn't necessarily choose, and the emotions and behaviors come from what's called implicit memory. This is really relevant. So go have a listen to that episode. It will give you some great context and more understanding of what I'm saying here. But another way of putting all of this is if you look closely or you really understand the underlying reason your partner behaves how they do, you'll realize that your anger is more anger at the modern human condition and at the society that harbored the conditions that led to how your partner is, that bombarded your partner with messages and experiences that led to dividing behavior or unkind behavior or unskillful behavior that you're now experiencing in him. And I want to also invite you to consider that it may be this anger that you feel, may be anger at what happened to you too as a young one or in past relationships. Anger that you weren't met with total love by your own caregivers or by past lovers, or that you were bullied or left out as a kid, or whatever it was for you. Whatever wasn't just love and kindness from others. The truth is we were all injured in 1,000 different ways growing up. And we do have a right to be angry about that. So yes, let's be angry. But what if we stopped directing that anger at our honey, where it only causes you and them more pain? And yes, believe me, I get it, how tempting it can be to direct your anger at your partner. Because they are the obvious outlet, right? They're right there. They're the ones acting out this conditioning. They're the product of the conditioning, the trauma, the programming, the acculturation, the very less than ideal ways people do relationship or interact with each other. And in a weird way, being angry can feel powerful and so kind of good. But again, it's not powerful when it comes to our desire to have a connected, loving relationship, which I know you want. So what if instead of directing that anger at our partners, what if we focused it on shifting this society that produced humans that are hurting and confused and therefore unkind? This society that never taught and supported us to effectively heal or process the hard things that happen in our lives so that they don't become trauma. That never taught and supported us to know and feel our deep, unshakable worth and goodness as humans, or recognize that in others. That never taught and supported us to guide our own selves lovingly. That never taught us to lovingly guide our brains or our nervous systems. That never taught or supported us to be in relationship with others with unrestricted love and compassion and kindness and self-security. We have the opportunity to support ourselves to forge and live out the kind of relationship we truly want in our heart of hearts, but have thus far sometimes gotten too tempted by our misdirected anger to create. Our misdirected, until now, anger is actually something we can use to help if we redirect it to where it may actually do some good and lead to positive change. We don't have to waste this precious energy. Instead of directing that anger into animosity and division in our homes and in our own hearts, let's channel it into fuel, into action, and into really a force of change. Let's channel it into actually learning how to meet our own feelings and less than ideal behaviors with understanding and compassion and love. Let's channel it into meeting our partner's feelings and less than ideal behaviors with curiosity, compassion, and belief in their underlying goodness and ability to grow and evolve. Let's channel it into learning how to release what's keeping us from truly loving and inviting the richest of loves into our relationships and homes. Let's channel it into living as if our loved one is worthy of our belief in them and our kindness and patience, even with their wounds and struggles. Let's channel it into living as if humanness, with all its messiness, is not a flaw, but something tender that needs our respectful, compassionate attention, encouragement, and love. Let's channel it into learning how to foster connection and the sweetness of intimacy that holds each other with a kind of reverence and sacred acceptance that really grows deeper with time. Instead of directing that valid anger that you might feel into a fight against one of the most precious people in your life, your significant other, why not channel it into being a team together? You and him against the misunderstandings and the old patterns that hurt him and you both in the first place. Why not channel it into building new patterns that heal and nurture both of you? My friends, let's direct our anger towards what it is actually for: transformation, protection, preservation of what most matters to us, and creation of what is really precious to us. Let's direct it into guiding ourselves into more love, more acceptance, and harnessing more loving influence in our marriages. This is how we will bring about a culture of love and respect and support in our homes. And it's the only way to bring it into the wider world as well. We have to start with ourselves. Now, I am not saying never be angry or never be angry at your partner. sometimes directing anger at our partners can actually be effective, but we don't want to do it nearly as much as many of you are doing it. I actually made a whole episode about this. It's called Strategic Anger, which is episode 111. So have a listen to that one. It's super related. So you heard me saying, let's channel it. So some of you might be like, what does that even mean? Like, how do I channel my anger? I'd like you to think about it like this. Anger uses up a lot of energy, which can really be a waste if our goal is all of the things I just shared now. Because all the time and energy we are using being angry could be channeled into all these effective things. When we stop wasting it, more energy can go into those other things. It will be freed up, that energy, right? So you can naturally have more energy and more time to focus on all these things that actually lead to what you want. So, in other words, channeling means getting over the anger at your partner. And you'll be able to do that by looking at your own side of the street, getting clear about where in you your anger is coming from. Much of which will be misunderstandings and untrue beliefs, misperceptions about your significant other and humans in general, and where their not so great behavior is coming from. Hopefully this episode has cleared a little bit of that up for you and given you more understanding and more clear perception about where that is coming from, that, your partner's behavior is coming from. But I've also created quite a few episodes in this podcast already that will help with all of this. In fact, pretty much every single one of the episodes will help. But right now I want to offer you some especially pertinent ones to help. So grab your pen. I'm going to share them in no particular order. The Strategic Anger podcast, I just mentioned, episode 111. Episode 114, acceptance versus making excuses for your spouse. The recent episode 127, the relationship rulebook. Episode 106, grievance, the biggest barrier to love. Episode 50, men, emotional maturity and love. And episode 20, turn your not so good husband into an amazing one, the first step. There are so many episodes on my podcast that are so relevant and will be so helpful for you. But these ones are really good starting places. And of course, if you're really committed to no longer wasting your energy ineffectively trying to create positive change in your marriage and to truly channeling that anger and learning how to guide yourself into a place where you have the most loving influence in your marriage, the most power to make your marriage feel great and to even influence your partner to be that great husband that you want, you're definitely going to want to join Treasured in the next round, which is coming very soon, in just a couple weeks. So hop on the wait list. When you hop on the wait list, you're going to be the first to get a chance to enroll, and you're also going to get exclusive access to the early enrollment discount. So don't put it off any longer hopping on that wait list. It's right around the corner when we start enrolling. To get on the wait list, head over to the description or the show notes of this podcast episode, or go directly to the description page of Treasured, which is www.lifeisworthloving.com/treasured. All right, my friends, here's to redirecting your anger and any of your hard emotions into a force of incredible, beautiful, positive change in your marriage. Be oh so well.